My husband, Cam, and I have been together 5 years, married for 2. We have a great relationship, and he has always been supportive of all my decisions. I couldn't ask for a better partner to go through life with. Cam has an older sister, Jana, 34, who had an accident about 4 years ago that ended up preventing her from ever carrying her own children. Jana is married to a man named Duke, who helped me land my dream job a couple of years ago by giving me a good reference. Jana and Duke are very wealthy and have the means of adoption and surrogacy. About 2 months ago, Jana made a joke at dinner about how I could carry their child since Cam and I have finally gotten married. Everyone laughed, including Duke, Cam, their mom, and younger sister. I truly thought it was a light joke, but 3 weeks ago, Jana and Duke invited us over to their home for dinner. They approached us and asked if we would carry their child. They explained that they want the surrogate to be a family member and not a stranger. Now, I believe surrogates are wonderful people and do a very selfless thing to help others, but I don't think this is something I want to do. Cam and I kind of looked at each other and he said, "I'm sorry, but this isn't something we're interested in." Jana replied, "Emily, what do you think?" I told her that while I'd love to help her, I just didn't think it was something I'd be able to do. I haven't even had my own children yet, and both Cam and I want to experience a first pregnancy with our own child. Jana became visibly upset. She then said, "After all we've done for you, Duke got you your dream job. We let you use our lake house for vacations. You can't do this one thing for us." Cam clearly explained that this was a huge deal. This wasn't just letting someone use their lake house or giving someone a good reference. This was carrying a life. I just didn't think I was the best fit for it. Duke didn't say much during the conversation, but did express that he would appreciate it if we thought about it some more. We left after eating dinner, and Cam and I were pretty upset over the situation. The next day, both Cam and I got a text from his mom saying how horrible we are and how we don't deserve our own children if we can't give our loved ones a chance at it. I was shocked by this. My mother-in-law has never said anything negative to me. We continued getting texts from Jana and mother-in-law. Nothing from Duke. But when I got into work last Friday, my boss called me in. He told me that he was going to transfer me to a new project. Typically, this wouldn't really be a big deal, but the current project I'm on is my baby. I built the entire thing from scratch and worked tirelessly on it. When I asked my boss why, he told me that Duke would like to be head of this project and I can be head of a different one. Now, this is a fairly large company, 4,000 employees, and Duke and I are on 2 different teams. So it didn't make sense that Duke would take a project from a completely different team. What does make sense is Duke and my boss play poker on Tuesday and Sunday nights every week. Neither of us want to do this for them. We're not the right people. We've both agreed that we won't. The problem is that Duke is actively hurting something that I am really proud of, my career. The new project is something that won't be supported by the board of directors for a long time. I'm going to be working towards something that might not even be implemented. Jana has also sent us a bill for using their lake house for 2 different weeks. Included with this is a letter saying that if we don't pay, they will take legal action. These 2 weeks were a wedding gift. We were only responsible for providing our own food. I don't think we saved the card they gave us that says this. I'm not even sure of the legalities of their claim. This entire thing is making both of us sick. Do I approach HR about this? Duke shouldn't even have anything to do with my team. It doesn't make any sense. Should we get a lawyer for that bill? As far as Cam's family, they don't seem to be letting up on the topic, and I'm hurt that they are treating us this way. Any advice on how to approach this? For work, go to HR. This is someone essentially blackmailing you because you won't do something non-work related, and you have evidence to back this up. He has texted you confirming he wanted you to carry his child. He has taken charge of your project directly after these texts. He has a personal relationship with said boss. Next, you have to contact the family collectively and tell them, in no uncertain terms. 1. It was never implicated that they were helping purely to take advantage of your body. 2. Had you known that was a condition, you would have never sought their help. 3. Your body is your decision. If they have an issue with your autonomy, then you wish for nothing more to do with them. 4. You both expect apologies. Otherwise, you will be cutting contact. Don't say that will include future grandchildren, but make sure they are aware of this. Next, talk to your husband and cook him the best steak ever for having your back. He sounds like a keeper. Your in-laws sound like creepers. I have an older brother and a younger sister. We're all 1 year apart from each other. When I was 15, they were 16 and 14. Our mom asked us to agree to be adopted by our stepfather. They were married for a year at that time. Our stepfather was a decent guy, and my dad was absent for most of our lives, as he left when I was 3. But it was too early. It didn't feel right for me. I wasn't ready to give up on my dad. I still had the hope that one day I'll be able to reconnect with him, and didn't want him to feel that I gave up. My brother and sister, however, agreed, and they even agreed to change their last name. This had bad consequences for me. I became the black sheep in the family. The 4 of them were now a family unit, and I was an outsider. I even had a different last name. My stepfather grew distant, and my mom was upset. My siblings weren't happy with me either. We grew apart. They always blamed me for tearing up our family. After I turned 18 and moved out, slowly I was left out of everything about our family. Sometimes I learned weeks later that there was a family vacation that I wasn't invited to. I wasn't invited to Christmases or Thanksgivings either. My mom would tell me that the path to forgiveness, for me, is agreeing to an adult adoption by her husband and changing my last name to theirs. I never agreed to that. When I was 20, I started seeking my dad. He was absent, but I thought, how horrible could it be? The worst thing that could happen was that he also wouldn't want anything to do with me, just like my other family. Well, I found him. I learned why he was staying away from us. He was mentally ill, pretty bad. He had stayed away because he thought we'd be better off without him. He didn't trust himself to be a parent, and he wasn't wrong about that. He was in no shape to be a parent. I had a few good years with my dad. It wasn't perfect. We struggled, but we became somewhat close. I offered my brother and sister to get to know him, but they didn't want anything to do with him. My dad died when I was 25. My mom or siblings wouldn't even come to his funeral. My grandfather died earlier this year, and he left my dad's portion of his inheritance to me as his only child, legally speaking. He of course knew my siblings, but he thought I'm the only one who didn't give up on my dad, and this is what my dad would have wanted. The size of the inheritance was rather big. I'm not super rich right now, but it allows me to have an upper middle class lifestyle without needing to work again in my life. The money gives me options. My family have heard about the inheritance. Not from me, but they could guess. Apparently, they were under the impression that my grandfather will leave my dad's portion to all of us, rather than only me. Now things have changed. I've received apologies from both my mom and stepfather for pushing me away, and my siblings who wanted nothing to do with me for about a decade are inviting me back into their lives. I really wanted this for a long time. Had it happened before this inheritance situation, I would have jumped with both feet. But I can't help think that their motives are not pure given the timing. What do you suggest I should do? Is there any hope, or are they only after the money? I'm struggling to figure out what to do and need people from the outside to tell me how things look. They didn't even go to his funeral, but they thought they would inherit from him? Wow. Sucks to be them, I'm sure. I suggest getting financial advice and somehow tying up the money in trusts or investments so they can't get to it in any way, at least for a year or 2. Give yourself time to make a level-headed judgment about what to do with it without getting pressure from others. I'd be tempted to tell them that you didn't feel comfortable taking the money, so you donated it to a charity for mental health. If they still want you after that, then I guess you know the answer. My 24-year-old daughter, Maddie, has been married for 2 years. But what started out as a passionate romance has quickly degenerated into one of the most obsessive, toxic relationships I have ever seen. Her husband, Jay, who's older than me, left his girlfriend of 10 years who had just miscarried their child for the second time a couple months ago, 2 days before they were scheduled to wed. This upset his mother so much that she not only banned Jay from the hospital when she was dying, but refused to take a call from Jay when she knew she only had a couple days left. Jay and Maddie went on a 4-month honeymoon, and Jay created a new position of Chief Talent Officer at his company. and employed Maddie as it. But soon, Maddie told me that Jay would always be obsessed about whether or not she was telling the complete truth and would always say to her, "Why do I sense a lie?" And it would be about little things, like if she was canceling their night out because she really did have a headache. He would want to know where she was at all times. Maddie would be over at my house, and Jay would text her saying, "I'm coming over to your mom's house right now." Maddie would threaten to divorce Jay and would flirt with other men in front of him. They'd constantly get into physical altercations, and Maddie even admits it was 50-50 who pushed who first. A couple months ago, Maddie called, and she was legitimately afraid of Jay. Jay had put her on leave at work and reminded her that he signed her giant paychecks, and she actually served him with divorce papers. He ripped the papers up, and she later withdrew the petition. He said he gave up everything for her, and she wasn't leaving him. I had moved to a town 1 hour away, and she drove up to my house to get away from Jay. She took an Uber, which she paid for with a prepaid debit card. I'm subletting the house I'm living in, and we both kept a low profile, and she withdrew money from their bank accounts before coming. However, Jay probably had someone find out where we were and showed up. He said he could make sure Maddie never got a decent job in local corporate circles again. They briefly reconciled and had a few great weeks before Maddie came back. Now she's living with me, and besides the toll on my mental health from troubleshooting Jay's attempts to contact her, Maddie has quickly drained the money she brought. I barely make enough to support me right now, as I'm technically a freelancer, so I asked Maddie to try to at least get an online administrative type job. Jay also found out about one of my clients, and they have stopped contacting me. I've had to shut down most of my online activity. She said she has anxiety about her abilities, and she sits around browsing the internet and laying in bed watching Netflix all day. It's become really expensive for the two of us to live together, but I understand that Maddie is still a victim of A, and that I would be putting her back into a possibly dangerous situation if I let her go. However, I needed therapy to deal with my anger at Maddie for not doing anything to help her own situation. She refuses to file for divorce again, refuses to get a job, and refuses to see a therapist, as opposed to just sitting around doing nothing. In addition, Jay continues to threaten my job prospects, and dealing with him has brought me to the edge of mental breakdowns. But considering he has said that he wants to take her to his house in another country to quarantine and start over, I'm afraid he'll try to isolate her from everybody further. What do I do? My daughter threatens to go back to Jay and take his craziness if I keep pressuring her to get a job. Your daughter is as manipulative and A as Jay. Honestly, you should just kick her out. She doesn't want to help herself, and in turn is manipulating you into allowing her to be lazy. She's using Jay as a way to pressure you and control you. It sounds mean, but how else is she going to learn? 'Cause she's not learning anything right now, and using Jay as a way to punish you. My husband and I have been together for about 3.5 years, married for almost 1 year. He had a relationship with a woman casually before we met, and I believe he ended it about 2 months before we met. A few months ago, this woman tracked him down on Facebook to tell him he has a daughter that is almost 4. He went for a paternity test, and in fact, he is the father. I know, very Maury, sorry. Since he found out about her, he is all in, and is figuring out how we can turn my home office into her room, where she can stay here sometimes, and figuring out finances. At first, I figured maybe he'd go see her. They live on the West Coast, we are on the East Coast, when the pandemic lets up. But he's talking about her spending the summer here. My husband and I were always pretty undecided about children, leaning towards no. He got really upset with me because he kept saying things like, "You're going to be a great stepmom," and "I bet you can't wait to meet," insert daughter's name here. I told him I wasn't sure. Then he said, "How can you not love something that's part of me?" I kind of shrugged and said, "I don't know. I guess I'll have to meet her first." Then over breakfast this morning, we were talking about our honeymoon. We were supposed to go to Europe in April this year, but it was canceled. And he brought up that when the pandemic gets better, we should bring this 4-year-old with us and have a family vacation. I lost it and flipped out on him. I told him this is not what I signed up for. I haven't even met this kid, only met her over FaceTime once, and I'm expected to rearrange my whole entire life. He then accused me of not having a maternal instinct and that something is wrong with me, that I'm not a normal woman. I'm trying to figure out how to effectively communicate my frustration. But when I do, he doesn't listen, and it causes me to blow up, and I end up looking like an a-hole. I need help communicating this, and wanted to see if anyone else went through something like this and how you handled it. What is your advice here? Please help. I went through it as a child. If you don't want the kid in your life, put your foot down. I was raised by my father and his wife after he went through all kinds of maneuvers to get full custody of me. Although I have a good relationship with my stepmom now, she was horrible to me as a child. I understand her point of view. She didn't sign on to be my mom. My dad thrust that role on her. A little kid needs love and nurturing, and they'll know if you resent them.